All right, Jody, welcome to the dirt.
Great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you, man. So let's just start with the basics. Who are you? What do you do? Why should we care?
Sounds good. So my name is Jody Haneke. I am president and founder of Haneke Design in Tampa, Florida. We've been going for over 20 years, which seems crazy, but I guess when you start a company in the early 2000s and you're at 2023, that's what happens. And we build custom software, but really what we do is we help folks bring digital products to market. So whether you're a Fortune 500 company or a startup that has an idea or a vision for a product, we help you basically take that kind of idea and that vision and define it, kind of estimate it, understand what the tech stack means and how you can kind of embrace technology trends to make that product even better, and then ultimately help build and bring that product to market for you.
And how long have you been doing this, Jody?
So the company's been around for since 2002, late 2001. But I've been doing this basically since I graduated college. So I went to school for graphic design and graduated in the mid to late 90s. And this is kind of like early and almost pre-internet days. So I got recruited to work for a company that was doing interaction design. They were building touchscreen kiosks for various different implementations in retail, as well as also in other industries and locations. And they needed designers to basically work with developers on kind of improving the technology products they were creating. And so at the time, there was no such thing as like a user experience designer or user interface designer. There was just graphic design. And so that company recruited me to help kind of bridge that gap between their clients and their expectations of their marketing departments and what the developers were able to do. And I've been designing for the screen basically ever since. And so about 20 plus years ago, after a lot of experience in that space, and including being part of a company in the .com days that I was partners at. We grew it from 4 of us to about 150 people. And that was, fast and furious in the .com days. So was able to have a lot of, good and bad experience through all that.
Yeah.
But a lot of good lessons learned in that experience. And then ultimately decided, in late 2001, early 2002, that it'd be a great time to start my own business, which is kind of like tongue in cheek because it really wasn't a great time to start a business. If anybody remembers what was going on kind of post 9/11, as far as technology is concerned and kind of the .com bust. So, I made the decision to, take my skills and experience and go out there and really just started contracting. And then it just grew and kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, you focus on building these products and these experiences for your clients, and it's all with the idea of, them maximizing the value of their business, which is what this podcast is all about. So when you think about your approach to design, how does it align with business value and maximizing business value for your clients?
Really, our goal is to really understand what the technology trends are, and then make the decision on whether or not they will have impact, that these technology trends are applicable to our clients' businesses. And then not only are they applicable, but then like how do you apply some of these new things? What was mobile, which was like almost like the .com days, right? Where it was like, what's our mobile strategy? Help us figure that out. Then moving into things like AR and VR and even like Web3, but now like the next big thing, AI, everybody's just throwing it around.
Right.
But what we do is we're like, does it even make sense? And how does it make sense? And how do we bring that into the fold for our clients? So that's how we think about it. And that's, it's design, but really it's innovation. I think, when I went to school, it was graphic design is what I was being taught, but really like, again, this was even before the terms were coined. It was design thinking, and the same way you solve problems as a designer is the same way that you have to look at solving problems and innovating for a business. It's the same thing.
Yep.
So it was fortunate that I had the experience on that design side, but also the aptitude to jump into technology and embrace and understand that. And then also to jump into a business that I had no idea how it operated or how it worked. And then basically say, how do I take all these pieces and bring it together to solve a problem? And in some cases, our clients come to us already kind of like partially there, where they're like, they've done some research, they've looked at products in the market, and they've realized, or they've even been using some products off the shelf that are out there, and they've realized it comes up short, or there's this unique thing that it doesn't do that applies to their business or industry, and they know that they want to create something, but they don't know exactly what that thing is, and they certainly don't know how to visualize it and bring it to market effectively. So that's where we come in. So in some cases, we're just suggesting and offering up ideas based on triangulating the technology and the trends and the business. But in other cases, our clients will come to us with a starting point of that, and then we refine it or pivot or just apply our experience to that. And our experience too is like cross industry, right? So, when we work with a client in healthcare, we think about what's going on in logistics, and we're like, there's something here, right? There's something where we could take what's more traditionally done this way in healthcare, apply what people are doing here in this industry, and now all of a sudden we're doing something unique and innovative for a healthcare client.
Yeah, that's really, do you have any examples that you can speak to on that?
I mean, I think that bringing, a lot of folks in whatever industry you're in are trying to implement, let's say like a commerce aspect to their solution. And what's funny is just because they're in a certain industry, they kind of immediately just start kind of from scratch on what that part of the process looks like. And, what we do is, we'll come along and just say, what are people used to? Like defining and building user personas and saying like, no matter what, who you are, at what level, you're buying stuff on Amazon on your phone. Like that's standard, right? So when we design a solution, why are we going to deviate from like what is standard? You know what I mean? So applying, traditional aspects of how people like purchase something or how billing is performed, and just really going for what's kind of established and what's understood, and then just bringing that to whatever solution that we're working on. So yeah, I mean, a lot of those things that are really important. And like I mentioned healthcare earlier, we do a lot of work in healthcare. I mean, kind of in a lot of different industries, but I think healthcare is a space where it's almost like the end user, i.e. like the patient, has been totally and completely ignored. Yeah. So looking at healthcare through the lenses of like consumer applications is like really exciting, to basically say, where's the innovation? Like, why are we not getting the results we want? Why are people not logging into a patient portal? And it's like, because it sucks. It was not built. It wasn't purpose built for a patient. It was literally like some large technology provider, whether it's the, an EMR, EHR solution, just checking the box that they've got something where a patient can log in and download their blood test results and view a PDF. It's like, what point is that? Yeah. How do we take that information, convert it into something that's more meaningful to the patient, and how do you apply AI to scan those results and then infer something and then suggest something through a chat interface? I mean, that's the stuff that's where our brain is constantly, basically on an everyday basis. So it's a lot of fun. It's challenging, but it's rewarding at the same time when we come up with something that's truly unique and novel, and something that's going to help our clients differentiate themselves from the competitors and improve their bottom line results.
Yeah, that's terrific, man. So like when you're talking about buzzwords like AI, right, or industry trends like AI, how are you guys leveraging your expertise in these areas to contribute to solving real world business problems for your customers? Is it that they're starting with the technology first, and you're like, hold on, like whoa, like let's start with the business problem, or are they usually at least starting with the problem and just getting excited about industry trends, or somewhere in the middle?
I think you see both. I think you see some people who are like, hey, let's have a session where we can really understand like what AI means for our current tech stack and our current applications, and we can help people kind of we can be a real resource in those discussions. And even help workshop those things out. Then you have other people who are not even thinking about trends and wondering how they apply. They're literally like, I got a pain point here. Like this is the pain point, right? Like we need to We need to, our sales cycle is entirely too long. So we need to go and look at what the steps are, where the roadblocks are, where the blockers are, where the delays are, and then need to come up with a solution to that. Right now, we're using a CRM, and we've got a custom app over here. So then we're going through that, and not only just looking at like kind of what they have and trying to solve the problem, but also like, okay, well, what are some of the new technology trends that can address that? Can we introduce a kind of a chatbot here instead of having all this back and forth email? You know what I mean? Where there's delays because you're waiting for a response from like an admin person in India, So right. I think it's one of two ways. It's one where they basically say like, okay, help us understand like how to apply the new trends, or if they apply. And then the other is like, we got to have those tools in our toolkit and bring out the right tool for the job. So it's constantly like training and learning. You got to have those tools in your toolbox, but you also have to know how to use them. It's just one thing to say like, oh, we do AI, but it's like, okay, you have that tool. Do you know how to use it? And do you know the best way to use it? And right. So for us, that's a constant. And I think that our clients find value in us because that's hard to do kind of like in a large corporate environment. They're so busy like maintaining existing systems, kind of keeping things alive, and then putting fires out that they need some outside perspectives, people that's job it is to stay on top of those trends and make the translation into how it can make sense for that business. And that's where we come in.
And when you're looking at a Fortune 500 business versus a startup, right? Is this two different business units in the way that you guys operate, or is it the same people serving both types of clients?
There's no distinction. I mean, I think we're following the same trends that everyone else is. Google, all the big guys. I mean, you get big, but if you really want to innovate and you really want to do what we do and help our clients do, you then have to act like a startup. And so even if we're working with a big company, I mean, we see this now by having like, chief digital officer. That was like kind of the first thing, or like now there's product management and product people, right? So all of these design thinking, like, all of these trends and all of these things are basically a way for larger companies to act more like startups in all the positive ways. Right. And so our approach, when we're dealing with a Fortune 500 company and they want to build a product that never existed before, we're using lean, agile, MVP. We're using all the same processes and terminology that we would with a startup, and putting them on that same track. In some cases, even building like, a budget and resources both on the client side and our side. That's almost a business unit just for this new product. A lot of the companies we deal with wind up with a digital product, but they're a services company. So like, literally like culturally, even like that's a totally different way to think. So from day one, when we meet with people and we realize we're going to help them invest a lot of money and build this product, we're telling them like, we're looking at them and saying, do you have product people? Is the same person who's handling your Cisco implementation also responsible for this technology? Like, and the roadmap, like, yeah. So we're having, it's interesting. I mean, we're having business discussions with our clients and really trying to consult them as much as possible. And again, the big guys kind of act like the startups, and in some cases the startups, acting a little bit like the big guys, which is just like, hey, let's get the right adult supervision in the room. Let's fill in all those other gaps. How are we going to handle payroll? What is our staffing needs and resources? So, but the process, the idea of bringing a digital product to market is pretty consistent, whether you're a large company or a startup.
All right, let's switch the discussion a little bit to a few things you mentioned early on that I'm always fascinated by, which is kind of this journey and growth to being a founder and to evolving into a leader and all of those things that kind of go with being a CEO and founder and that evolution. Is there any pivotal moment in your career where diversifying your skill set or experiences or anything like that played a crucial role in your professional growth?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's probably two things that come to mind. probably the first one was a pivot that probably made 8-10 years ago, where I brought in a director of design. So, from that point, I was, it's kind of like an architectural firm where the lead architect kind of is the design director. They're providing kind of like the rough sketch, and then it goes off and gets refined and engineered. I was doing that from day one, and actually then doing the work too. But I made the strategic decision, as far as my personal career is concerned, to hire someone to do that. I realized that in order for us to grow or at least sustain revenue, there needed to be a certain amount of sales and business development activities. And I was at a point where I needed to either decide to hire that person or hire someone to do the design direction that I was doing, so that I could concentrate on the business development and being a CEO, like running a company. Right. So that was probably the first major significant pivot or adjustment that was made, as far as, myself and my leadership and what I was doing to contribute to the company. And then the other one was just kind of, learning about how to really understand the cultural differences between people and demographics and the different, let's say, generations of employees. I'm Gen X, so it's kind of fit in that zone. But then you've got, millennials, some boomers, right? You got a pretty big spectrum of people that are within a company like ours. And you really have to, I grew up with like a kind of one size fits all management style. And I've learned, through the good and the bad, that's not the best way to manage, and that you have to really understand people's DNA and kind of what makes them tick. And also make sure that people know, we do great work. I'm so proud of the work that we do. I see just amazing things come out of our team all the time. And I really had to make a significant pivot to make sure I express that. You think it and you think everybody knows it, but you got to tell people, you got to make it a real point to, let people know when they're doing great work. So that was another thing, so again, one was really delegating part of my original job responsibility as a founder, which is kind of like, everybody does it. You start by doing everything, and then basically divesting the things that you could hire someone else to do, so that you could do the things that only you could do. And for me, that was business development. So that was number one. And then number two was just really like, when you bootstrap a company, which we did, revenue funded from day one, revenue growth the whole way. I own 100% of the company. You're not really thinking management style too much. You're thinking like, I got to keep the doors open. Right. So, that comes with maturity and comes with time. And so that was probably the next kind of pivot for me, was just to, switch that up and make sure that I was being sensitive to the culture and the organization that I have now.
Is there, thank you for being so brutally honest, but also, is there a specific challenge that you faced in managing these diverse age groups? And if so, like, how did you overcome that challenge?
Yeah. So, when the millennials came into the workforce, every other article you could read was about people complaining about,
like, oh shit, they're coming.
Yeah. And like, they're not motivated and they're entitled and all this. And I kept reading all that stuff. And again, that's not my generation. And I kept thinking like, wow, this is, and then I actually turned around and I looked at like the majority of people in my company, and they were millennials. So I'm like, why is that not as much of an issue for what we do? And I didn't really, I was doing what I do. I didn't really change too much at that time, as far as how I was working with them. And I thought to myself, like, I think I know what it is. I think from what I understand, people nowadays in the workforce, especially the young folks or younger folks, they want to know that they're contributing to something bigger and better. They don't, working on a piece of the puzzle, on a cog in the machine, where they don't really see a direct impact of the work that they're doing, is a problem. They want to, and that doesn't just mean like, I want to work for a company that's contributing, to society in more of a philanthropical way at all. It really means like, oh, I created something that never existed before. Oh, we have a case study where we built this technology that like saved millions of dollars. Like, wow, that helped that company grow and scale and hire other people. Like when you connect what you're doing in your day-to-day job with those outcomes, that is extremely rewarding, and I think that generation feels that way more than any other one. There's probably a boomer generation, or my parents or something like that. I mean, like work was work. Like you work, like, okay, you don't love it. Like you just, that's what you do, and that's much different nowadays. And I guess I've just been fortunate enough, even personally, to always, since I graduated college and being a designer, like none of it was ever work, it was like being creative. It started with drawing pictures and making like mixtapes and stuff. Like when I was in high school, like it was cool. Like I didn't even know that was a job. So for me, it was like just a natural fit because like everything I wound up doing full time for a living was associated with something that I had passion for. And I could see it manifest itself as something that never existed before, inventing things, So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but
it does. But just on the flip side of that for a second too, right? Like not everybody has the entrepreneurial mentality where they're just going to naturally gravitate towards something that they're going to be able to change the world with something that they own. Right. And that's okay. And so to me, that's where like a big part of that disconnect is with millennials. Is there are a lot of them that don't want to go start their own thing, but that doesn't mean they don't want to feel ownership as part of a bigger system. Right. And
absolutely. So, yeah. And that's why that leads into everything I was saying earlier in that why companies that are smart try to create a startup culture within a larger organization. That's how you're going to get the most out of people. Hey, that's proven to be successful in inventing products and bringing new innovation and IP to market as a big company. It's just proven that that's the right method to do. It's probably also a great method for retention and attracting talent. And what we do, we've been in business for 23 years, but if you were to come around our office and talk to our people, you'd be like, oh my God, this is just like a million startups in one company that's been around forever. So if you want a job working for a company where you're not going to go and start your own, you maybe even be like risk adverse to go work at a startup, we're a great environment for you, because you get an opportunity to work with a company that's been, revenue funded from day one, profitable, solid, stable, and also be working with a bunch of startups and building and inventing new technology. So that's not a pitch to come work for us, but obviously you can find us online.
No, you sold me. So no, as part of that comes this continuous learning, right? And diversification of skill sets and obviously enjoyment. But like, I'm just curious as some of the things that you're doing at Haneke to, really drive and adapt the team to this ever-evolving tech landscape. Is there anything around professional development or continuous learning that you've got like in a programmatic way for folks on the team?
Sure. So two things on that. One, there's a certain amount of DNA involved in an individual who's going to perpetually learn no matter what. These are I go back to like when Swift came out, which is the current programming language for iOS. And before that it was Objective-C. We had guys who like spent the weekend and came back and they're like, okay, I think I got it. It's like literally learning a new programming language. You got to want to do that or you don't, and that doesn't mean, there's not value for somebody who's like, I went to a trade school or some kind of VOTech thing. I learned .NET backend development and I pretty much just want to hang my hat on that and find the right job where I can just crank. There's plenty of opportunities out there and you can do very well for yourself. But somebody who's like, here, my toolbox is more than one tool and I want to continue to make that happen. So there's that, right? So we want to find the people that are the latter. And then also we do provide, all kinds of opportunities for people they can gain access to online training through all the tools that we subscribe to. We do provide, we do look at forecasting their time. And of course, our type of services business, we need to have a certain level of utilization. But anytime there are gaps, we always look for, okay, this is an opportunity on next week. You've got about 2 days. to go and just dive into AI. Okay, let's talk about what we could do. Maybe by the end, you could demo something for us. We also do weekly developer lunches. So once a week, we bring lunch into the office, and we do go into the office still, which is good, 3 days a week. And they all get together, and we do have some virtual folks. They get online, and we all group together. And what they'll do is somebody will choose a topic, and they'll go through about something that they learned or skilled up on, or watching some videos, and then have some discussion around the table. We do that for every department. So we do that for our delivery department. All the project managers get together, and resource managers, so they get together to do the same thing. And of course, our design team as well. It's design and strategy. So I think even just that one thing, right? Like putting that team together, once a week, bringing lunch in, and provides a great opportunity to, really improve on the culture, just people getting to know each other and kind of hang out a little bit. But then also we use that as an opportunity to introduce kind of new technologies, new topics, and new trends.
Yeah, very cool. When you, maybe just rewinding a little bit, were there any moments that you took on a little bit more than you could handle? Maybe it's too many team members growing too fast. Maybe it's too much cash burn in another way. Maybe it's too many clients that maybe weren't large enough and you weren't able to sustain the pace. But anything that you took on more than you could handle?
All right, so I don't know. I don't know how much time you have, but like every example you mentioned, there's probably a story around that. So I do think that we're pretty selective now about on the startup side. There's a big difference between an actual startup, meaning I quit my job, I put a team together, I raised money, and I'm going to go build this thing, versus somebody who sends us an email that says, I work all day as an attorney or a CPA. My son has this cool iPhone, and I think I could create an app to do X, Y, and Z. And you wind up talking to that person. And you're like, okay, well, what are your plans? I don't know. I think I got a little bit of cash in the bank. It's something that, I wanted to mess around with. I think that we've gotten way more realistic with those folks from like the very first discovery call, to the point where we let them know that there needs to be some level of commitment to this, that typically a startup involves funding and involves creating a team. And that team could be pretty lean on his side, lean on us heavily in the beginning and then kind of fade out. So we're just educating those folks, you know what I mean? And then we perform, it's probably about a 3 or 4 week definition sprint, which is something that we've created. It's got elements of like Google design sprints in it and whatnot. And it's meant to take like the vision, which might be like a PowerPoint or like a executive summary of a vision of a product, and like fully flesh it out as far as defining all the ethics and user stories, acceptance criteria, doing some, prototyping and things of that nature, so that we can really accurately estimate, and we can build a roadmap and then estimate like maybe what the first version of the app is going to be. And if somebody's not willing to invest that much time, 3 to 4 weeks, not a lot of time, but in our team to come in and help them figure that all out, we won't work with them. We know that is typically not a good fit for us. So as far as like, what we've kind of lessons learned about like clients and kind of where we can achieve the best results for them, they have to be serious, from a startup perspective. They really have to be committed. We treat it like a venture capital firm, because if your VC were to hear a pitch from a startup who's got their act together, they've got a team, the person quit their job to go run this startup, versus the guy who's got the day job and is trying to scrap something together on the side, the VC will never invest in the latter. It's just not going to happen. So we kind of feel the same way. We know that things are not going to go well that way. So that's one thing that really helped us kind of narrow our focus on the startup side, on kind of the right fit both ways for us. And then the other thing is, we probably like we've had times, it's been a long time. We have 20 full-time folks right now. We've been as high as maybe almost 30. There's kind of a sweet spot for a services company like us. If you're going to get over 30 full-time resources, or even close to 30, you have to have a whole different organizational structure, and probably even be in a slightly different business model type of situation versus kind of like staying kind of lean and mean, 20 to 30 employee zone. So, you had asked about clients and kind of like narrowing that focus and figuring out kind of, who's best to work with, again, both ways, and also like headcount and burn rate for a services company. If you're going to be revenue funded and not have outside investment, and you are going to stay that way, you really have to find the right balance of full-time headcount in order to achieve the best results. I think once you get to that point where you're saying, we're going to grow this thing headcount wise from an FT full-time headcount wise, now you're talking about maybe doing like a roll up of regional offices. You know what I mean? Like where you're trying to, you're creating kind of more of like a platform of different companies in different markets versus having kind of like one place with just one owner and 200 employees and do 100% professional services. That's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that transition of, kind of 20, 30 plus people, and shifting of business models, shifting of organizational structure, shifting of a lot of things. When you mentioned that, did you notice that when you hit 30 people that things started to change and that you weren't ready for it? And is that what led to you decreasing the workforce?
Well, a couple things. One is I already knew that. So back that company in the .com days, we grew to over 100 employees and we were doing services, and it was good because it was, the floodgates were open. It was literally the .com days, and we were helping everybody get online, both, venture-backed startups and brick and mortar. So it wasn't a problem, but, once that started, some of that funnel starts drying up, it's really hard to keep all those folks busy. So I just think that there's a different model for a services company that wants to grow exponentially beyond the size that we are at right now. That includes different geographies, maybe working together, and also some amount of nearshore type solutions that allows for kind of surge scaling up and down without having, full-time bench resources here in the US.
Sure. So your 20 can become 40 or 50 real quick with the leveraging of additional resources.
Yeah. So we already have a model. I mentioned we're 20 full-time, but we have probably almost the same amount in subcontractors that we basically use for surge. So, we try to maintain a certain baseline level of profitability and utilization with our FT headcount, but our growth really is around having the ability to say yes to sales opportunities and business development. And should those things overlap and happen, our FT resources move into code review and oversight, and we start spinning up the outside folks. And those outside folks, we're not looking for cheap solutions. That's not the idea. The idea is just affordable resources that we can spin up and down that deliver the level of quality that we want. So yes, are there a few maybe in Mexico, South America, maybe one in Eastern Europe, plenty on the US soil who, work with us just kind of 1099, who we reach out to when we need to spin them up. And all of them kind of filter their work through our dev leaders that provide the oversight for each area of our stack. All the code gets reviewed, it gets merged in, and that's our model. That's our model right now. That's what we're doing for the time being. And I think that, any moves towards a big exponential growth in revenue or headcount is going to be way more strategic than just more of this. Again, it might involve geography and maybe some type of rolling together of maybe a couple different companies.
When you look at things from a market perspective, rise of DIY or do-it-yourself websites and no-code tools to do-it-yourself build products. When you look at some of these trends that are happening, or Gen AI, however you want to look at it, things that are in some cases democratizing the ability for people to use these tools to build products and build sites. How do you see all that coming together, 5-10 years from now to put Haneke in like a supreme position to deliver as much value as possible, but still leverage those types of tools?
So, we're all learning and we're all seeing how this plays out. But I really think that having tools that automate the creation of digital products is a wonderful thing. Even in creating like JavaScript frameworks, like that's an example. We're basically, instead of having to write all this, hand code all this JavaScript, we're going to use a framework that's going to make it easier, take that amount of time, cut it in half. Everything that we're talking about with the no code, low code, this, that, and the other thing, that's great. You know what I mean? Ultimately, everyone's trying to build something, and the more efficient, the quicker you could do it, the less skilled you might have to be in a certain area. Great. I think those things are phenomenal. However, knowing what to build, right? Like the instructions, the idea of like taking the world of possibilities of things to build is going to require human interaction for a very long time. Yeah. I don't see that. I don't see that being replaced anytime soon. And I see everything about the automation, the AI, the GPT. I still see them as tools in the toolbox for someone who wants to build digital products. We just have to figure out how to use them. And if it means that, one guy on my team can now do the work of 4, that's awesome. Or he can do more work on oversight and strategy with the client and less work writing every line of JavaScript. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's go. We're not looking for like, how do we slow things down and bill more hours? You know what I mean? Like, look, we do good work, we're going to get paid. I'm wanting an efficiency. You know what I mean? I want to bring more products to market in less time. And so all of these things I think play well for us right now.
All right. Last question before we hop into the Founder 5, because I was going to do that, but now you just brought up another question. So, so many dev shops or, so many professional services firms in general focus everything to, cost per hour or cost-based pricing, right? But I've heard you mention a few things that lead me to believe that you guys leverage more of a value-based pricing model in the way that you don't necessarily think about hours. You think about efficiency and value to the customer, right? And not to say that you don't have to back it into an hourly thing at some point, but have you spent much time thinking about, for Haneke or even prior, cost-based pricing versus value-based pricing that got you to land on your model today?
Well, I think that to be clear about terminology, cost-based pricing, I think what you're referring to, just to be clear, is time and materials. Right. So there's an hourly rate established, estimates are giving, and then you build time and materials. And then a value-based pricing would be more associated with a fixed fee model, time and material versus fixed fee. And value-based pricing, doing it fixed fee is because, hey, we're bringing a lot of like value to this already, right? Like, so we're going to give you a price that's based on the value of what we're delivering to you. So as far as we're concerned, it's really complicated not to do things on a time and material basis when you're working on products that involve third-party dependencies. Almost every single project that we are actively working on involves our team, of course, but also our client's back-end team, our client's third-party database provider who has an API that we find out is not actually complete yet. And now all of a sudden we're helping them test it, which was never part of what we thought we'd need to do, but hey, we're going to jump in there and help you out. So, the unfortunate aspect of doing what we do at the level that we do it, we have to be accountable from a time and material basis. Now, that being said, we've done work with some folks who we can't bill time and material. Let's say there's some clients that we've had that have grants. A grant says, hey, here's a grant for X amount of dollars to go and build this AR application. Well, right. If we want to do that work, like we have to commit. We have to figure out that we can do it within the grant, and we have to commit to get it done. And we've done things of that nature. And typically those things are done where we can put everything in a box. We control the box. And if we can control the box, then I am much more open to doing, a fixed fee or value-based pricing on those types of projects. So
Got it. All right. Awesome, man. So let's hop right into the Founder 5 to close us off. So first one here is top metric or KPI that you are relentlessly focused on.
Utilization.
All right. Second one is a top tip for growth stage founders like yourself.
My top tip would be to be very honest with yourself and what your strengths are. Honesty with yourself is the most important thing. And if you don't have a certain combination of attributes that a founder needs, go find a partner to fill those gaps and do that in a brutally honest way. I think that would be my biggest piece of advice. And then as you grow it, make sure you're constantly hiring and delegating and divesting things that you might have done in the early stages that someone else can do, so you can concentrate on the things that you are the most effective at or can be the most effective to the company at.
All right. A favorite book or podcast that's helped you to grow?
I'll spit one out that's somewhat personal, but I think it's definitely being well and healthy, I think, is a really important part of being a leader. And so Ben Greenfield's podcast, he's a biohacker type person. So a lot of really good stuff in there about keeping yourself well and balanced, both mentally and physically. Which as you get older, you start to realize these are important things if you want to still hit it hard every day. Be clearly focus on the task at hand. I think it's really important to be well, and that podcast is fantastic.
And this is Ben Greenfield? Ben
Greenfield.
Do you know what it's called?
I think his name is, if you search his name, it comes up.
Okay. Got it. All right. We can hop into the next one. Piece of advice that counters
Ben Greenfield life.
Ben Greenfield. So probably looking up Ben Greenfield, you'll find it.
Yeah, you're good.
Perfect. All right. Piece of advice that counters traditional wisdom.
This one allowed us to still be a company, which is, you might really think there's no possible way we'll be able to do that project. We're so busy with this current one. Just say yes to every opportunity, or at least say yes to those conversations. Don't ever get so in the weeds on whatever it is you're doing. Especially, this is a services company, piece of advice too. You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to start and have, one client that's feeding half of your staff. And then all of a sudden that one client winds up drying up on funds or pulls away or pivots or something. And now all of a sudden you're looking around like, what do we do next? So saying yes to conversations, being a startup services company is a lifesaver. It's absolutely one of the best pieces of advice for early stage services companies.
All right, last one. What is going to be the title of your autobiography?
This is a tough one. Being creative too, it's always like, oh, I'm going to say something creative, so like it has to be awesome, But I think that in my life, high school, I was a terrible student. I really felt like, I don't know, like, what am I going to accomplish in this life? Because back then everything was like, I went to private high school and everybody was doing well and going off to these different colleges and stuff. And I was like, I'm good at art. So I got to art school and then majored in graphic design. And then all of a sudden I just was like, oh, I have something here. And then what I decided was I'm going to show all those people I went to high school with that, I can take this and make this something. And I did it through brute force. So I think the title would be Brute Force.
Nice. I like it. Brute force. All right. Well, you've given a ton to our listeners today, Jody. So time for a little bit of self-promotion. How can those listening help you out?
At the end of the day, there's two things we need as a company, and obviously we want to work on great and exciting products. Anybody who's really, interested in innovation, and, again, they can be just kind of, hey, I think there's something here. We love having those conversations, and we love bringing our experience to bear and kind of help people understand the trends and what they could mean for creating products within your existing company or spinning out, a part of your company. So, if you all at all want to have a discovery conversation about those things, just Haneke Design online. You'll be able to hit us up, and I'd love to talk to you. And then the other thing is people. We never stop talking to talent. Design developers. Hey, maybe we could work together, maybe not, but we love the community here in Tampa. That's where we're based out of. And so, if you're in the area and want to swing by and, say hi and show us what you're working on, we'll show you what we're working on. That'd be great. So we're at HanekeDesign.com. Hit us up.
All right, Jody, thanks for joining us. Thanks everyone for listening in, and we'll catch you guys next time on The Dirt. Take care.
Thanks so much.